Rock and roll.
So welcome to a paradigm shift for RFID portals. New economic simplicity aesthetics for manufacturing, warehouses, and distribution centers is what we're here to talk about. And if you could advance to the next slide, I'll introduce us. So I'm Anthony DeBlino. We're a manufacturer of RFID equipment, and we're also an installation company. And we're about 11 years in the business. And I'm here with my associate, Neil. Neil?
Yeah, hi Greg. So my name's Neil Mitchell. I work for SensThys. We've been around probably about a couple of years now. We're a new hardware guy doing RFID hardware. We are doing some very different things in the RFID space, particularly in the terms of the way we're trying to simplify the reader infrastructure to make it much easier to install and much lower cost. The team here, we've got a bunch of PhDs. A lot of us actually come from the RFID space. Myself from Alien, and John Price has had his own company, and it also came from Thinkific. A bunch of patents between the teams, and also we've got a couple of people from outside of the RFID space, which is kind of nice because they bring some different ideas. But that's kind of SensThys in a nutshell.
Great. So Neil, do you want to speak for a bit, and I'll join you later.
Sure. So really, the opportunity for us in the auto ID space is, this is true for RFID generally, right? Is there's an opportunity here for us to reduce or eliminate the human error that kind of creeps into tracking solutions, tracking products, tracking things through the supply chain. Fixed read points, fixed reader infrastructure is particularly useful because fixed reader infrastructure is potentially lower cost than a lot of mobile RFID solutions. So potentially, if a hard fixed infrastructure can work, it should be able to work more efficiently than something which is mobile. So so really we're all about here trying to drive the cost out of the system, increase the read speed, help you automate the whole auto ID solution, and hopefully without changing your business processes either at all or not by very much, in a way that allows you to realize the benefits here of an RFID solution. So increasing the visibility across your supply chain, tracking all kinds of relevant information for you, and having the software available to monitor and analyze all of this data for you. Anthony, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I think that this was one of the things that we like to stress when we're presenting the value that we have designed working with partners like you, Neil, is that we've come a long way. So in other words, we've seen what's happened in RFID. This is a project that was in 2014 in cold storage. And although there aren't a whole lot of people that know what's been going on across broad swaths of industry, whether it's cold storage or retail or manufacturing or oil and gas, the team that we've put together has decades of experience in deploying. This is a project where we were tracking 300,000 spots of frozen chicken for a vendor in Georgia. And you can see here that we were looking at an annual savings of $233,000 just for the process that we were improving. And we were also freeing up a lot of time of management. This was in 2014. So if you go to the next slide, I think what I point that out for is to explain when you're deploying RFID, it is no longer the technology that is a limiting factor. It's the team that you engage with and the way they think about how to successfully deploy it. So for example, you can see here, a lot of our experience at Jamison, we are a manufacturer, so has been in the manufacturing environment. And this particular market, managing raw materials, reordering, authenticity, or even, of course, the obvious, which is tracking in the supply chain, has been done over and over again. But only a certain percentage of those projects have been successful. And the key is working with the right team from the first time you work with the project. Because again, the technology isn't failing. It's the team deploying it, the strategy of how you get it out there, how you manage it when it's out there, etc. And if you go to the next slide, not only in the manufacturing environment, but as you get out into the historic, what I would call kind of 50-yard line of RFID at the distribution center, tracking, again, is completely possible. It is done successfully in several environments, but managing how you deploy it in that environment and how you maintain it in the environment is something that there aren't a whole lot of groups that have that expertise right now, and we happen to be one of those. So in the warehouse and distribution centers, you're going to see accurate inventory, error-free shipments. I think our oldest deployment and the highest volume would be about 50+ dock doors doing 1 million transactions a day, and all clean to track simply what's going out the door for shipment. A very basic RFID value, but deploying it, having it run for 4 or 5 years, there just aren't a whole lot of people that have done it. And you can see in this environment, it's very simple. You see a NEMA enclosure, some bollards to protect it, and you're now tracking what's going in and out of those aisles. So you can go to the next slide, Neil. Now I want to let you talk about this, Neil, and I'll come again later.
Sure. So if we take a look at a lot of conventional RFID solutions, there can be quite a lot of complexity to the infrastructure, to the readers themselves. And coming from the RFID space, looking at traditional RFID readers, whether they're coming from Alien, whether they're coming from Zebra or whoever else, we're just faced with this huge complexity of getting these things set up to work efficiently, to work in your particular environment, and particularly with the installation. The installation can be absolutely horrible. And combine the installation with the actual hardware, the whole economics really are quite miserable compared to what it should be, in my opinion, in our opinion. If we take a look at the RFID tags out there, tags sell for 3 cents, 5 cents. You may have metal tags that sell for a little bit more than that, but they're pretty much a commodity. That hasn't happened yet to the reader infrastructure, and the whole reason d'etre for SensThys is really to drive costs out of the RFID reader fixed infrastructure, and that includes the reader price itself, but also the challenges and costs associated with installation. So installation costs, labor costs, maintenance costs, those kinds of things. We're also not coming into this blindsided saying, okay, I've got a round peg, I'm going to bang this damn thing into a square hole. RFID is clearly a technology very applicable to tracking through supply chains, tracking in warehouses, tracking through dock doors. But it may make sense in some circumstances to actually combine the RFID side of the sensors with other sensors that may be useful to your particular application. And so what we've done is we've introduced a reader which can very easily hook up to other sensors, whether they're Bluetooth, whether they're all kinds of other sensors, to solve the problem that's important to you. So moving on, this solution that we've really tried to come out with, and you'll see this in the next couple of slides, is really to try and address making systems simple, removing the traditional complexity barriers, making these things easy to manage, and to connect to your business system. We wanted to address the economics, and I touched a little bit on this already. Our readers are about half the price of other readers, and that's because we were able to come into this, leverage from what other people have done in the past, but come up with a new architecture to address how to bring a reader into the marketplace. But we're also able to hammer the installation and configuration and operation challenges that traditional RFID readers have. And you'll see this in the next couple of slides. And also from from a doorway, from a portal perspective, the reason we're working with Jamison is, these guys have got years of experience, particularly on the portal side, right? And I think by combining our low-cost technology with some of their new low-cost portals, we can really produce quite a compelling solution into the marketplace. And that really addresses the aesthetics. Okay, aesthetics may not be particularly important in some respects for a warehouse environment, but keeping these things slim, keeping them low profile, or still protecting your equipment, whether it's from weather, whether it's from some guy driving a forklift truck into it, these are all important things. So let's just talk for a second about what this reader is. We call it SensArray, and we have two versions. We have SensArray and a SensArray Plus, and I'll talk about the differences in a second. But in essence, the SensArray reader combines the 4 or 5 things that you see on the slide here. Yep, we're a full 30 dBm reader. Yep, we have an antenna built in. We have an 8.5 dBIC antenna built into the reader. Now, there's a few other solutions out there in the marketplace that combine a reader plus antenna. In fact, Alien had one of those where I came from before. But what the other solutions don't have is a combination of both switching of data and switching of power. So obviously these devices all need to be networked, so you can have data flowing backwards and forwards from each of the readers. But what's novel about these readers is that you can daisy chain them together so that you don't have to have a cable going from every single reader all the way back to the head end. I can literally connect one reader to the next with an Ethernet cable. And that Ethernet cable is carrying data, but as I alluded to, it's also carrying power. And the power switch inside of the reader basically allows us to transfer power from one reader to another one. So if I want to add another reader or another portal into my solution, I simply connect it to its nearest neighbor. I don't need to connect it all the way back to the head end. We also have a variant, let's say an option to add Bluetooth to our reader if that's something that's important to you. And as I said, we have two variants of the reader, one which is what we call the low end, the SensArray, and as the image depicts here, it literally has 2 connectors inside the reader. It's an Ethernet cable in and out. It's basically power over Ethernet, data and power coming in and going out onto the next reader. We have another version of it which actually has 3 of those ports. It has 3 SMA connectors, 3 connectors to external antenna, and we also have GPIO for connecting to other external devices and controlling other devices. And that's depicted here. The high-end reader actually also has a DC input as well if you wanted to use that. We find that the vast majority of our customers actually don't use that, they'll just use PoE. We've also introduced an antenna, our new low-end high-performance antenna called SensRF 101. Again, we tried to take a look at what's going on in the RFID industry. We saw people paying $150, $100 per antenna. And the team here has actually got a lot of RF antenna expertise. The team here actually designed the low-cost antenna for Time7. There's a New Zealand company called Time7 that you may be aware of. So the team here actually designed the A5010 antenna for Time7. So we have, unusual for an RFID reader company, that antenna expertise in-house. So we used that, and we've basically modeled on trying to perform develop an antenna that performs equal or better to the industry standard LED type antenna. So this is actually a 9 dBIC antenna, 10-inch by 10-inch, IP68. We'll be testing it to full mil specs. We offer it in either flush or Visa mount, and the list price for this antenna is $49, one-off. And so in volume, of course, that will certainly go down. From the aesthetics perspective, it looks very similar, same footprints, same radome as our reader. So if aesthetics are important to any of our customers, that's taken care of as well. So next, wanted to show how you put these things together inside of a Jamison portal. So here on the left-hand side, we have a power over Ethernet switch supplying, in this case, both power and data through a single Ethernet cable into what I've labeled here as portal 1, which is, in this case, a simple portal with one reader and antenna inside of it. And it's connected with an Ethernet cable to portal 2, which has 4 read points inside of it. And maybe this portal is a two-sided left-hand, right-hand side portal. So it has a SensArray Plus connected to 3 additional antenna, 3 SensRF 10s or 101s, and that gives you your 4 read points. And then this could be daisy chained onwards to additional portals. And as we kind of allude to here, one of those portals could have other sensors in. And in this case, we're demonstrating a PoE camera. This is actually a demonstration we show on a regular basis where we're literally pumping video at the far end of a network of sensor arrays. And that video is basically being daisy chained through all of these sensor arrays while each sensor array is also reading tags. So a pretty powerful system. And this demonstrates how easy it is to hook these things up. And from a portal perspective, that follows through into the whole portal. So you can literally start to daisy chain portals together without the need necessarily to have additional power sources coming into each of those. One other point I would like to make is as you daisy chain these things together, you can supply and inject additional power into any part of the network. You can do that simply by just providing another PoE injector and connecting that into the 3rd port of the SensArray Plus, and that will provide additional power into the network. I won't go into the details on this, but we do, of course, supply all the software, fully free software, downloadable from our website. We have our own RFID console, and that allows you to configure not just a single reader, but multiple readers and read tags from multiple readers. We can even tell you how many antennae you've got connected to each reader, so that if for some reason one of the antennas is disconnected, you'll see that red, so you'll know straight away there's a problem. We also have SDKs for Java, Ruby, and Visual Basic.NET. And of course, we have some additional support from third parties such as Alien, Invatec, and RFID for you. And so that basically means that the SensArray readers are recognized by these products. So stepping back just real quick, I mean, the whole SensArray reader is really a platform. And ultimately, there are a bunch of sensors that you see on the bottom here, passive RFID and Bluetooth are just an example. Later, we'll be adding additional sensors. Bluetooth is one we've just mentioned already, potentially movement sensors, cameras, so on and so forth. So we want to be that sensor platform, potentially embedded inside of a portal in this case. And then we provide the power management and the data management from those sensors and provide that data up into your enterprise intelligence. We don't do the enterprise intelligence, but we do provide the data management and the power management that goes into it. And then we've spoken about the economics. So I wanted to validate that. So we have an example here of an 80 read point solution. And we've compared a conventional reader to a SensArray platform. Now, with the SensArray platform, we have what we call quad kits, which are really just a reader plus antenna plus all the cables. And so we basically priced it out using those. And as each of the sensor arrays has its own internal antenna, you don't need quite so many antenna. And if you price this out, you very quickly see that the reader infrastructure itself is a lot less expensive with the SensArray platform. But that's compounded particularly by the infrastructure. If you take a look at a conventional reader, you need about 1.2 miles of cable to do exactly the same thing that a 500 feet of cable with a SensArray platform will do. You need 20 home runs of Ethernet cables versus one for us. And so you total this up, and effectively we're half the cost of a conventional reader solution when you combine both the hardware infrastructure costs plus the cost of installation and configuration. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Tony and let Tony talk a little bit more about the portal advantage.
Thank you, Neil. Well, I can't stress enough how important it is that you consider the environment that your system is going to reside in, not for the day that you're installing it, the week that you're installing it, but for the next 5 to 10 years that you're installing it. And I think one of the things we've gotten real good at in working in different projects is to be able to take the RFID equipment that Neil's just described and allow it to give you the best business value in an actual operational process environment so that you can monitor it, you can evaluate it, you can service it, and then you can scale it. As I'm sure Neil and everyone that's listening to the presentation would agree, the goal is that after RFID is deployed, that it continues to grow within the organization. And one of the advantages of working with our team is that we not only have a product line that can service it and allow for the installation in an easy way, a fixed way to deploy it with certain specifications that are maintained throughout the deployment, but also if you happen to open the doors once in a while, that the equipment can be protected from the environment, whether it's sensors that's working with. And I think what you've seen, if you've watched RFID as it's grown, is that it's really more RFID/IoT now. And that's why a device like SensThys, a new product line, is a really interesting combination to, a solid deployment team. We have a lot of different models, but our new model is the one I think that's Neil's talking about, is the most exciting. If you go to the next slide, Neil. Our Guardian series was designed to be deployed in warehouse environments across large deployments where we could predefine a fixed read field and then proceed to deploy it and maintain it across hundreds, if not honestly thousands of read points. So the Guardian was designed for that. We've commercialized it now. There are actually 3 sizes. You see 2 there. They come in 40, 80, or 105 inch. The 105 inch is special order right now. These are available to purchase, and we have brought a price point, our price point down and cut it about in half through the deployment, and anyone that's interested can get reseller pricing. But combined with SensArray, it's really become what I think is the most affordable and functional system that's in the market today. So if you can see what we've taken, the idea Neil has, and we've just made it easy to deploy and maintain. You can go to the next slide. If you're not familiar with Jamison, we have a full line of various portal sizes and forms that support really all the hardware in the market. Our Mini-Hawk, Hawk, Strip, GNOME, Thin Portal, Mod 3, and component kits are deployed in many of the deployments that perhaps some of the people that are listening to the webinar have worked with. You can go to the next slide. So it's always our goal to take whatever your business process you're monitoring, to take our experience that we've had with successes and failures over the last 10 years, and put together an easy system that we can pre-wire, pre-configure, so that when it gets to the field, it's a deployment or even a pilot that looks like you really have a mature technology that's easy to deploy and maintain, as opposed to what was historically a science experiment. So this approach allows us to see your teams, or again, Jamison has the ability to deploy nationally, and we do offer that to all of our partners at a healthy margin, and have a successful RFID deployment because of how thoughtful we've been from the partners such as Neil that we choose to work with, to the way we choose projects, to the way we deploy them. You can go to the next slide, please, Neil. So motion sensors, IR sensors, touch sensors, any of the sensors Neil talks about can all be pre-configured from a hardware perspective too before deployment. And bottom line is, when you add our value to theirs, I'll leave it to Neil to summarize.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so I think we were very interested in working with these guys because the portal infrastructure also has been pretty expensive, and coming at this from a point of view of trying to drive costs out of the solution, we're very interested in working with Jamison, particularly on the Guardian. So combined, I think, with the SensArray platform effectively being daisy chainable, and you can actually create more interesting, more complex networks as well. They don't have to be just daisy chained, but having the capability to daisy chain portals together with one cable just going between most of them is very, very compelling. So I think here we're really trying to address the economics. We're trying to drive down the cost of the whole portal infrastructure, drive down the install time on it, the downtime for you, and of course the protection and aesthetic aspects of using a portal in a rough environment. And we really want to make this kind of as much like Lego as possible. And the goal here really is help you get up and running, help you realize the ROI that can be realizable from this very cool RFID technology that can really help you realize much more consistent visibility into a supply chain and into what's going on inside of a warehouse. So I think that's pretty much it. Here's our contact information. What we can do in a second here is that we can, if you do have any questions, we can, if you type them into the Q&A, then Tony and I can try and respond to them for you.